welcome from across the world where most everyone's snowed in or is raining right now. And this is the perfect day to think to yourself, I want to know what's coming out this week in comic books so I can find something to curl up next to the fire and read, tear through, memorize, practice my drawing, all those things you do when you want to be inside instead of outside. And as always, Talking Shop is bringing you cool upcoming projects that are either coming out this week or very soon. And we love to talk to the creators of these projects so we can get the skinny on what we should know and why the things are so cool. Today's episode is exceptionally awesome because we have Jim Valentino with us.
Hi, Mom.
All the way from Portland.
Yeah.
Where he is not experiencing rain or snow.
No, it's just cloudy and kind of overcast, which is cool.
Absolutely. So have you always lived in Portland, or is this?
Oh God, no. I moved here about 12 years ago from Southern California, but I was born in the Bronx. So, yeah.
Oh wow, you've gone to all the coasts.
Oh yeah. I'm a coastal person.
Have you ever lived anywhere else that was interesting that you loved?
Denver.
Oh, Denver. Oh wow, that is
Yeah.
a beautiful place. You've lived all the beautiful places. Do you pick places based on where you're going to work?
Well, yeah, I'm an indoor cat, so it's like I love to look out the window, and see green stuff. I don't go near it because I'm afraid of it, but I like seeing it.
So did you start right away into comic books, or did you have another career that existed before?
Oh God, I had tons of careers. I couldn't get arrested. Yeah, of course. Well, jobs. I had tons of jobs, but yeah, no, I did not start right in. It took forever. It took me all that time to build up enough money to bribe people, and then I got into comics. It was great.
So were any of the other things that you did before, were any of them related to comic books?
I worked in animation for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on shows like The Real Ghostbusters and a bunch of them that I thankfully forget. So, yeah, but I worked there for about a year.
No, that is super awesome because there are a lot of people that were raised on Real Ghostbusters, so
yeah,
I'm sure we've got viewers right now that are just squealing their brains out like, what? I did not know that.
Yeah.
So what did you get to do? What was your
my job?
Mm-hmm.
I was a storyboarder. I did storyboards almost from the time I was first hired. I did storyboards. They had me do cleanup at first when I worked for Marvel Productions. Mm-hmm. And I think it was my first or second day. I literally bumped into Stan Lee and he dropped all the papers he was carrying and stuff. Yeah, just my luck. But yeah, I did storyboards like almost from the start. They set me out in front of Alex Nino's office and told me I had to clean him up. And I said, okay, well, then I quit. I can't clean Alex Nino. So then they said, well, here, try this. So it worked out okay.
That's hilarious. So why did you start with autobiographical topics? Because all of your
earlier stuff
seems autobiographical.
Well, a lot of it has to do with my age. Okay, I'm 742. No, I was born in 1952. So in 1962 was the beginning of the Marvel age and the Silver Age of DC. So all those books influenced me enormously. I was an avid comic book reader when I was a kid. Okay. And then in 1972, I was 20 years old. So that's time for the underground comics. So as equally as I'm influenced by Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko, I'm influenced by Von Bodie and Robert Crumb and all of those guys. Okay. So now jump to 82, and these more mainstream or more middle comics were coming out. I don't know, forget what they're called, alternative comics.
There you go.
So I was influenced and within a peer group with people like Scott McCloud and Dave Sim and all of those people. So the early comics that I did are sort of a mishmash of all of those things, and they still are. So,
That's amazing. So, okay, so 1980s brought you to Marvel. So what drew
No,
you?
1990s, I think.
Was it 90s?
Was it? No, it must have been 80s,
Web
but the very
trial?
end of the 80s. Yeah, very end of the 80s. I only
What
worked
drew
at
you
Marvel
there?
for a few years.
Did someone else work there that drew you in, or did you just decide you wanted to? I want to work here, and I'm going to.
Actually, what happened was I had done a couple of things. Craig Anderson was an editor there, and he needed somebody to fill in on Savage Sword of Conan. I think it was a King Cole story, and I don't remember who wrote it, but I drew it. And then I wrote a Red Sonja story, and I don't remember who drew it. Somebody else drew it. So I was doing piecemeal here and there, okay, different things, what if and stuff like that. And they'd call me if they needed something done really fast. So Rob and I were going up to WonderCon in Oakland. And he was just coming off of Hawk and Dove. And he was looking to go up to get a job at Marvel because Mark Grunwald and Tom DeFalco were there. So I'd prepared a bunch of pitches, including one that he and I were going to do together called The Young Avengers, which was basically Marvel's version of the Teen Titans. So I talked with Tom DeFalco and Mark Grunwald, and Tom said, well, we're doing this. Doing what? He goes, the Teen Titans. He says, except we're calling them the New Warriors, but it's basically the same group, which made perfect sense because Teen Titans was very popular, at the time, George and Marv's Teen Titans. And, Marvel had all these characters, and we just said, let's put them all together. What the hell? Our pitch was a bit different than the New Warriors, and there were a couple of characters that we didn't use, obviously, but they were pretty close. So then I pitched the last one I pitched, or the last one I wrote, which I wrote like a day or two before the convention, before we drove up there. I think we drove up there. Was Guardians of the Galaxy. And I remember calling Rob up and saying, what do you think of the Guardians of the Galaxy? And he goes, well, I think they're cool, but they don't have a story, but they look cool. So I had to think about, okay, what do I do? So it literally hit me as I was heading to the bathroom at midnight or something like that. Why not do a story based on the Marvel Universe 1,000 years in the future? What happened? Who survived? All that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it became sort of an ongoing what if story because nobody bugged me. I got told no twice. I wanted to use Wolverine in one of the stories, but Bob Harris told me no. He said that they didn't want to admit that Wolverine could live for 1,000 years. And I went, okay, that's fair enough. That's okay. The other one was I hated Starhawk, who was the most popular character, and of course I hated him. And I wanted to change his name from Starhawk to Shadowhawk, and Tom said, "No, but that's a cool name. Why don't you make a new character?" Okay, Tom. So I did. So there you go.
Shadowhawk was such a popular title. I mean, I came up in comic books in '92. And I can remember how popular those beautiful black and gold and white covers were, just striking.
Yeah, that was one thing. They weren't multiple covers. They were just the cover of the book. And I tried to do things that nobody else was doing. Everybody else was doing a regular drawing and then putting a foil thing or something behind it. And I was like, no, we can do better than that. We can have some fun with this. So the most difficult one, I think, was Shadowhawk 2, number 3 or number 2. Anyways, it was the one that folded up. And I was having dinner, I think, with the printers. And I said, here's my idea. And I did it with a napkin. And they looked at it and they said, how do we do that? And I said, well, you just die cut it this way. And they looked at it and went, yeah, that works. So, it's like I was inventing new things that nobody else had done. So I thought it was okay. Anyways, it was a way for me to compete with the likes of Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, Mark Silvestri. It was like, how do I compete with these guys? Well, I'll do weird covers that, that'll work.
So how did you get drawn away from Marvel and into the Image crew? Since you're one of the founding members.
It's in the book.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, there's so many things. Like, I know there's a really awesome documentary. I think it's Netflix that has it, which is wonderful.
There's a couple of them. The funny thing is the guys who were filming the documentary, they asked me the origin of Image Comics. And so I told them, and they said, every single one of you says the same story except for one. And I went, oh yeah, Todd. Just like, yeah.
Did Todd make up his own?
Oh, well, Todd's the center of the universe. Just ask him; he'll tell you. When you walk past him, you got to say, "Todd bless you, Todd bless you." Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
It's okay. He can take it.
This is true. He's a grown-up. All right.
What happened was, and it's explained in the book in more detail, but basically what happened is Rob decided he wanted to do an independent comic of his own called The Executioners. Mm-hmm. And he went to Malibu, whom we knew the guys there, Dave Olbrich and those guys. And they put out an ad in the CBG, Comics Buyer's Guide, which was the newspaper of the day. And got an early morning phone call from Bob Harris telling him that he couldn't trade off of the X franchise. And if he published this book, he'd never work in this town again, which was supposed to scare Rob, but it just pissed him off.
But he was only like 25, right? He was too young to know to be scared.
Yeah. No, I think he was like 22, something like that. So he was like, I don't care. So he started talking to the three people that he felt most comfortable with in the industry. Mm-hmm. And that was Todd, who was retired at the time, and Eric Larson, and me. And Rob and I shared studios off and on and off and on. So I said, I wasn't on a million-selling book, and I wasn't a millionaire, and I had kids and responsibilities. So it was a big step for me, So Eric signed on right away. The second he heard about it, Eric was like, yep, I'm in. Because Eric's Eric. And Todd held off and held off and held off. Finally, they were going to New York together for the Sotheby's auction. Okay. It was the first comic book auction that Sotheby's did. And they were auctioning off X-Men #1, Spider-Man #1, and X-Force #1. So
the book or the art?
The books, the art.
Okay.
So I get this phone call from Todd, and he goes, are you in or not? I got Eric in my one back pocket. I want Jimmy Valentino in the other. Are you in? I'm like, are you going to do this? He goes, yeah. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. You're not going to back out on us? Nope. Okay, I'm in. And then I had to go home and tell my wife.
So where did the seed money come from? Did you guys just all?
We all put in. Yeah, we all put in a serious amount of money to get it going. And that first year we were with Malibu because we didn't have any infrastructure, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, and they got 10% of the gross for each book. They made bank that year, let me tell you. And then after a year, we were ready to go out on our own, and we did, and we incorporated.
Did you guys naturally fall into specific roles, or did some of you have to take on roles that weren't your joy but had to be filled?
No. We just sort of flew by the seat of our pants. We had no idea what we were doing. I think Eric Stevenson says in his introduction that it happened more from happenstance than anything else, than an actual plan. So, yeah, no. I do remember a meeting with Bill Shanis from Diamond and at San Diego in 1992. And Bill was like, you guys are at the forefront of the industry. And Todd said, man, if we're at the forefront in the industry, you guys are screwed. It's like we're the biggest screw ups ever. And
was it a scary feeling to have so much success just out the gate?
It was pretty heady. I mean, it was very heady. We were being written up in all kinds of magazines. We were on CNN and places like that. We were, in Forbes. I mean, just all this stuff that just, I don't think any other comic had ever been through. Certainly no comic book company had ever been through. So it was pretty heady, but, at the same time, we were being pulled in all these different directions. So infamously, especially at the beginning, we all got tagged with the notion that we couldn't keep a deadline. And yet, if you look at it, the way it worked was there were 3 guys who did group books and who had studios with lots of people in them. They were constantly late. There were 3 guys that had solo characters without a bunch of kids hanging around them, no posses, and they were always on time. But we all got billed with that, Image is late, it's Image's fault, which was wonderful. All the speculators were blaming us for books that they couldn't sell. And what I said was, that's like walking into a restaurant, ordering everything off of the menu, and then getting mad at the kitchen because you couldn't finish it. It's like, it's not our fault.
Or like walking up to one machine in Vegas and putting 1 nickel in and pulling and saying, I didn't make $1 million.
Yeah. How dare they? Yeah.
So Robert Kirkman. You're credited with bringing Robert into the fold. What was Robert doing before?
Before he became a partner?
Yeah, before he was a partner. Mm-hmm.
Well, he'd done several books for us. Tech Jacket. That's the one I seem to remember easily enough. But he had done several books for us, and it was during my tenure as publisher, and Robert just would not say die. If he did a book and it didn't work, he'd go, okay, I got another one. And same thing over and over again. He just refused to give. And he was working 2 shitty jobs at the time. Can I say that? He was working 2 jobs so he could pay the artists. And he learned lettering, so he didn't have to pay a letterer. But I kept on giving him a chance because I liked him, and I appreciated how tenacious he was. Mm-hmm. He was very smart in the sense that at conventions and stuff, he got to know each of us individually. That was a smart move because we all liked him.
Yeah, I think he continued that on, honestly, in the best possible way, that he continues to have the retailer breakfast, which are not actual breakfast, but at dinner at San Diego, and gives us all, some FaceTime and gets us all hyped about what he's excited about that's coming up next. So he's still doing it. Yeah.
So because that's the way Robert thinks. Anyways, what we saw was he had brought Walking Dead in, right? Which I told him zombie books don't sell, which was true. Zombie books did not sell.
Not at the beginning.
His was the outlier, and still is. It still is. There's plenty of zombie books. None of them did much of anything. That's because it wasn't a zombie book. It was a book about people. And if he would have pitched it that way, I would have said yes immediately. If he would have said it's about a father and his son living in this crazy world, and I would have went, yeah, okay, because I'm a dad and I have a son, and I get that. So, anyways, he had done Walking Dead, and it was pretty new, and then he did Invincible, right? Eric Stevenson and I looked around and said, we have every other kind of book except superhero books. The only superhero book we had was Savage Dragon, and everything else was something different. So we went out and asked a bunch of people, if they could do a superhero book for us. So we got Fire Breather by Andy Kuhn and Phil Hester, and there was a book by Keith Giffen that didn't last very long. Love you, Keith. And there was something else I can't remember. But anyways, Invincible. Robert called up and said, "Hey, could I do one of those?" We're like, "Sure." And he said, "My character is called Bulletproof." I'm like, "That's a terrible name, Robert. Come up with something different. How about Invincible?" "That's great. Love that." So anyway, so he had put out this very controversial thing, his manifesto, which got him a whole lot of enemies. Wow. People were like, who does he think he is? Well, he thinks he's a creator who's decided that he doesn't want to work for Marvel and DC. He just wants to work for himself. And he feels an Image is the best place to do that. So we started talking. We, the partners, started talking. And one of the things we realized was we needed a younger guy. We needed somebody who had come in from a different point of view than we had, who had new ideas and different ideas. And we, like I said, we all liked Robert. So it was kind of an easy call.
It's been a really good match, really. He's got, and to his credit, he did what a lot of people couldn't do that weren't Marvel and DC. Having a superhero book show up is terribly difficult on a rack that's not Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
He had the right touch to it, where it's like, okay, this is not going to be like any superheroes you're used to.
Yeah, right. Which was the right call to make.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the book that's coming out, and I'm sure that it's coming out because we're celebrating 30 years of Image. But this really awesome idea of having an official Image timeline, was this something that was driven by you?
Yes. Yeah. When I was first starting out, again, because of my age, I was very lucky in that I met and got to know a lot of the Golden Age guys. So I knew Jack Kirby, and I knew Julie Schwartz, and I knew Murphy Anderson, worked with Murphy quite a bit, and a bunch of other guys, that I knew. And almost to a man, their biggest regret was that they didn't save anything that they had done back in the Golden Age. And the reason is because, it's just comics, what's to save, which is what they thought back then. They had no idea that anybody who read those books as a kid would grow up reading them as an adult. That just was just insane. So I decided that I was going to keep everything I did. And when we formed Image, I realized that I would be the only one who would keep all the things that we did as Image, because I felt that Image was historically important. And if it blew up in our faces a year or so later, well, who cares? So I kept articles, and I kept notes, and I kept the books, and I kept the posters, and I kept all that, the Inferia and all that stuff, because I knew none of the other guys would. So as the 30th anniversary was coming up, which by the way is tomorrow, is the actual 30th anniversary of our first meeting, February 1st. Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Well, he needs to find out that his parents are actually supportive. Oh wait, why is the title?
Sorry, just people in the store talking.
Oh.
They're looking at manga.
So as we were talking, as Eric Stevenson and I were talking about it, I said, yeah, I had done it before in the Image Comics hardcover. I'd done a short timeline. And I said, I want to redo it because some of the things that I thought were important then are not so much now. And I wanted to do it across 30 years. And Eric thought it was a great idea. So I told him as punishment, he has to write the introduction, which he did.
Oh, perfect. So what things that you, when you started, thought might be the most important things to keep ended up being not so important, and which things that you thought were just kind of, I'm going to keep it just because it's an extra thing, became very important instead?
Oh, that's hard to answer. I kept as much stuff as I could, not knowing how things would shake down, because who knows, so I kept everything that I could. Right? With the timeline, there were things that were contemporary back in the day, the Image hardcover timeline. People who were working with us who it didn't work out, or blah, 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 or whatever. There's just differences. If you compare the two, there's differences. Plus, this one is longer.
At 64 pages, it's going to, I imagine, it's going to have a lot of goodies in there. I think it mentioned pictures. So is there a lot of pictures from the early days?
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Well, it's broken up into different sections. There's the, let me see. Hold on a sec. Oh, here's one.
Oh, how wonderful.
That's from 5 years ago up here in Portland.
Yeah.
For our 25th anniversary party. And it's hard to do this. That's on my left is the first one in the yellow jacket is my son Aaron, Eric Larson above us, me, Robert Kirkman, Mark Silvestri, and Rob Liefeld. But anyway,
all gathered for the expo?
Huh?
Had everyone gathered for the Image Expo?
No, everyone was here. I threw a 25th anniversary party and invited all of Portland to come to it. So those were the guys who made it, and most of the people who work in Portland came to the party. Retailers, creators, just everybody I could think of. They all got an invite, help us celebrate. So that was the way it worked. Anyways, this is the first section, and it shows stuff, the books and things and photographs and things like that. Hopefully stuff that people haven't seen a whole lot of. And then down on the sidebar, it gives the information. Who did what.
Okay,
then,
so you're teasing it to somebody that is on the fence about, I don't know, do I need this for my collection or not? Tell everybody one thing that will hook them, that they're definitely going to need to have this book now.
It's great for training puppies. It just, you can't beat it. It's just fabulous. So go to your rescue place, rescue a puppy, and you're in, So there you go. That's
oh my gosh.
Anyway, so that's the first thing. The second section, Kat Salazar, our PR wonderment, she researched all the awards that Image has won in the last 30 years. And there's like 5 pages of that. Harvey Awards, whatever awards, right? So that's the second section. And then the third section is miscellaneous stuff, like not all, but a lot of the ash cans, which a lot of
those ash
people.
cans, some of them are so hard to get.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that look like photocopied onto colored.
Yeah. And then it's just a whole bunch of stuff, like statues, things like that. I'll be posting some of the pages on my Facebook page tomorrow so people can see them. Yes. Robert came in after Rob and Jim left.
You never got to hang
Long
out with
after.
them then. Oh, out of 30 years, is a particular creator you desperately wanted for image title that you could not get?
Well, there were some people who just couldn't do the image deal. They just didn't have the business acumen to do it. All they wanted to do was draw.
Copy.
And then there was some, the one guy who we all would have loved to have seen come into image was John Byrne, who hated us passionately and still does.
Why?
Jealousy. That
sucks, because he would have been awesome.
He didn't think we deserved it, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because you deserve what you create, what you get. That's what you deserve. And we created it. We did it. He could have done it, during his day, but he didn't. So we did. But in his mind, we didn't deserve it. We were all a bunch of talentless hacks. So there you go.
I have to say congratulations. And you and Image have been part of my life in comic books since the beginning, because I started in comics in 1992.
Wow.
So,
I'm sorry.
Image books are sorry. I'm not. I love doing it. I wake up in the morning thinking about comic books and going to bed thinking about comic books. So.
Actually, the first time I met Jim Starlin, I told him that he and Bernie Wrightson and Barry Windsor Smith had brought me back into comics, and he reached over and said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I'm going to use that from now on," and he was like, "Yeah, go ahead. Who cares?"
Yeah. Oh, perfect. So if people wanted to follow you on social media, are you engaged in social media, and where should they follow you to get the most information?
Facebook. I only do Facebook. I can't twit. I just just too many jerks there.
I'm not any good at it either, so you and I can hang out on Facebook.
Yeah, so I go on Facebook in the morning when I'm drinking my first cups of coffee and trying to open up my eyeballs. And other than that, usually I just stay off of it and, find other things to get into trouble with. So, that's that.
Well, keep doing what you do. We love you so much for all you brought to the industry, and for what you started that is still great. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, make sure you say thank you for Mr. Valentino's time. And thank you for joining us here on The Experience. We've got another interview coming up, but make sure to tell your local comic shop to pull aside the official Image timeline for you so you don't miss it.
Support your local comic shop, please. We need good retailers. We need the retailers that are left, because they're the good ones, and we need them.
And we
yeah, people want to make a big separation here, but really this is a symbiotic enterprise, and we need the fans, we need the creators, we need the retailers and the distributors and the people who work behind the scenes whose names you don't know. We need all of them,
True.
So thank you.